Most people don't want to be in the spotlight, don't want to be known, don't want to be sharing anything. However, this has become the new reality. We can resist it, but it's here. Same as we could have resisted social media. It came. We can resist AI. It's here. Personal branding is very similar. That visibility for leaders is now expected by our teams and also externally by our clients, all the different stakeholders, our investors, has become the reality.
Welcome to the Leader's Mindset, where we bring you conversations with leaders who are making an impact in business and our communities. Today, I'm here with Marina Byezhanova. She's the CEO of Brand of a Leader and helps entrepreneurs and executives build their personal brands. Thanks for being with us today, Marina.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. And thank you for pronouncing my last name perfectly. That's not usually the case.
That is really important to me, to pronounce last names correctly. My last name, as short as it is, has been butchered by a lot of people over the years. And to me, that's really important to make sure that we pronounce people's names the way they pronounce their names. So
appreciate it.
So first, before we get into this, I want to thank you and your team, because part of what you do for your clients is to send me amazing podcast guests. But I know you do much more than that. So what is Brand of a Leader, and what are you helping your clients with?
Of course. And just to quickly say, so yes, my company, Brand of a Leader, also pitched me as a guest to you because about a year ago, I hired my agency to manage and develop my personal brand. Because as many leaders, there are things that we can do on our own. But the question is, do we? We don't. And that's when an agency like mine comes in really handy. So Brand of a Leader is a personal branding agency for Gen Xers, specifically CEOs, founders. Sometimes we'll work with executives as well. And what we do is, number one, we help executives and CEOs figure out, well, what is their personal brand? What is it all about? What is their unique angle, concept? What is the brand story, narrative, speaking points? That's number one. And then we help them market their personal brand. Podcast guesting is a fantastic way to do so. That's why it's one of the services we offer. We also manage our clients' LinkedIn pages and write thought leadership articles and a lot of ad hoc connected services as well. The goal is to make them more visible and make the organizations more visible as a result of that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of tools to do that all of us should be using as professionals. Whether you're an executive, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an emerging leader, we should have a LinkedIn presence. We should be doing some kind of thought leadership, even if that's just as simple as, hey, here's a post about something I had going on and I learned today, right?
100%. It's crucial. And it's a hard reality for many business owners, many executives, especially Gen Xers, because, all of us who are over, mid 30s, we did not grow up with cell phones in our hands. We did not grow up with the idea that there is that lack of privacy, that we share things about ourselves. And most of us, we really want to be behind our businesses, building the businesses, whatever role and capacity, not in the front. Most people don't want to be in the spotlight, don't want to be known, don't want to be sharing anything. However, this has become the new reality. We can resist it, but it's here. Same as we could have resisted social media. It came. We can resist AI. It's here. Personal branding is very similar. That visibility for leaders is now expected by our teams and also externally by our clients, all the different stakeholders, our investors, has become the reality.
Yeah, I didn't realize how resistant people are to being in the spotlight until very recently. And the way I came to know that is you've had a podcast, you do the work you do, you promote people's brands with LinkedIn and that kind of thing. And there are always people who are coming up to me saying, how can I support your podcast? How can I support your company? And I say the simplest and most effective thing you can do for me is to find my content, watch it, like it, comment it, and most importantly, share it. And a lot of people get this really scared look on their face. And one person even said to me, that's a lot to ask. A lot of people don't want to put themselves out there and be in the spotlight. And so that's just something I've come to understand much more fully, is a lot of people don't want to be in the spotlight. But why?
Very often that is the case, and very often, Jason, potential clients come to Brand of a Leader and they say, I'm unlike any other client you've worked with because I don't want to be in the spotlight. I don't know, my marketing team is asking me to do this, or whoever, or I don't know, my buddies are telling me, other CEOs, that I should do it. I don't want to do it, but here I am, I'm not like your other clients. To which I tell them, you are. It's very few of our clients, very few, very small percentage that want to be in the spotlight. Most of them don't. And that resistance, there are many reasons for it, but the resistance is real and quite prevalent. We see it all the time.
Yeah, and I want to get into why it is so important to be in the spotlight. Why is it so important to be in the spotlight? And I want to get your perspective on, not your buddies, not the people like, oh, you should be on Instagram, or oh, you're such a funny person, you should do this, you should do TikToks, because there's a lot of you should out there. But why is it so important, especially for executives in corporate?
Well, so there are two main reasons. So two main answers to your question. One is really self-serving. One is serving the needs of the organization that you're leading. And I'll start with the latter. It's really become the thought leadership brands that we develop as leaders of our organizations has become a crucial part, the core part of our marketing strategy and marketing mix. Again, we can deny it. 20 years ago when social media became a thing, a lot of business owners were saying social media is not for us, right? Social media is not for us because, I don't know, we're B2B, we're global, we're local. There were reasons. And then every business is on social media. It's similar to that. Why that is the case is a few reasons. So number one, trust. People want to know who is behind the organization, what are their core values. So, and we see statistics on numbers that when leaders of an organization are more visible, it increases trust, increases sales, so directly affects the sales marketing function from that end. Number two, how it serves the needs of the organization is our employees. Our employees are also more and more younger than us. And they are born in an era where everyone's visible. And so if their CEO is hidden, if their leaders are hidden, then that's odd to them. They feel inspired by leaders who are out there and leaders who clearly stand for something, because that is the Gen Z, and we're going to have alpha. It's going to be probably similar. They expect that. And then finally, AI. The findability of organizations is undergoing a tremendous fundamental shift. And CEOs who are leading organizations are disregarding that. They're just putting their organizations at risk because those organizations are not going to be found. The era of just optimizing technical SEO is gone. We're switching to AEO more and more. We're not going and putting in best personal branding agency in the world, google.com. Not doing that. We're going into AI and saying, my body said that I need to build my visibility. What does that mean? What should I do? And how AI will recommend my agency versus someone else's is on the back of all of the thought leadership that I created as the leader of this organization that has signaled to AEO that I'm a thought leader, thus the organization is a thought leader. So there is that one answer to your question, why? Why should leaders be building their personal brands? And that's rooted in serving the organizations, but it's also self-serving. Because when you build a personal brand, you build portability for yourself. We so often hear from entrepreneurs who exit, from CEOs who lose their jobs or retire, that when that happened, they lost their identity. They felt that they became irrelevant. The phone stopped ringing. So those shadows that you're in, even if they're still serving you in a more old school structure of your role, after that pivot, not having the visibility and you being active to the network becomes a hindrance. So we're seeing more and more people come to us preempting a transition, building their visibility so that becomes more of the parachute when they fall into that transition as a result of that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to emphasize that as Gen Xers, as we move on in our careers, as the younger people come in, they are used to much more public figures being in their lives. They're used to the people in their lives being much more public figures and much more transparent. When I was coming up in the Air Force, it was considered really bad to promote yourself like that. It was looked at as careerism over mission. And what you're telling us is, if you want to be effective with the mission, you need to be doing this for the sake of the health of your organization internally and your relationships with your customers.
Very much so. And I love what you said right now, Jason, because that is the one of the biggest reasons why people don't put themselves out there. And we're talking specifically CEOs and founders, leaders of organizations, is they feel that that will show that they are not humble and that they are, self-serving and self-promoting and bragging, me, look at me. And because that used to be the case, as you said, and many, you're talking about career in the military, but that used to be in the corporate world too, and still is in the more old school organizations. If you're out there too much, then that's a red flag, and you need to be a humble leader, and you're not humble. What we say to people is that, well, that is no longer the case. That perception across the board is no longer there. That if you have visibility, that means that you're self-promoting and a conceited narcissist. That's no longer the case. Beyond that, what we explain to people is, if you are humble at your core, you are a humble leader. When you build visibility and you are being authentic, people will still perceive you as a humble leader, even if you're creating that content. Now, mind you, if you're not a humble leader and you start creating content, well, again, if you are rooted in authenticity, people will perceive you as who you truly are. But that concern with how will I be perceived because I'm putting myself out there, it still exists, and it's very valid.
Yeah, you mentioned humility, being humble. Leaders kind of have this real push-pull tension with humility, right? We're often very confident in our abilities, but not always not always the most confident in our relationship skills, and sometimes that comes off as a lack of humility, right? Sometimes we overcompensate for our reluctance to be in the spotlight with ego. So what should executives and corporate leaders be doing right now to promote their personal brands, to build all the benefits while still staying humble?
Well, so number one is figuring out what is your brand. The biggest mistake, Jason, that people make is they start putting themselves out there without figuring out, well, what is it that you're putting out there? If you want to not be misperceived, well, how do you want to be perceived? And of course, is it rooted in authenticity? That step is not only important, it's also what assuages a lot of worries. Because also often people will come to us and say, I do want to put myself out there, but I don't want to be perceived as lacking substance or adding to the noise. I want to put myself out there showing that I'm actually bringing something to conversation. It's mind-blowing to me how many exceptionally successful people will say, I don't know if I have anything of value to say. It's incredible, but also, again, I appreciate that humility and in many ways. But so when you go through the process of understanding, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. What is my brand? How do I want to be perceived? What are my core values? What are my speaking points? If I get on an interview with Jason, I want to be strategic again. How do I want to be perceived? What topics do I want to be associated with? What are, my sound bites? That strategic piece is really important. I tell, because I do a lot of public speaking and including to large executive corporate groups. And I always say that even if you're not going to put yourself out there externally, you still want to figure out what your personal brand as a leader is all about internally, because you are still on stage. You might not be on an external stage, but your employees are looking at you, your superiors are looking at you, people in other departments, investors, partners, they're looking at you. So how do you want to be perceived? What is the brand of you, even internally? So that step number one is really important. It gives people a lot of clarity and also a lot of satisfaction when somebody does this work for you, and when we do this for clients, and then they look at what we put together. It's an inside out process. We just give it awards and we say, well, here, this is you. We hold up a mirror. It's a very pleasant process. It's just everything you've ever done and everything that you are and who you are. It feels very validating. And of course, we elevate it through words, so it feels really good. I would say that's step number one. If you're asking me, following that, what should leaders be doing to then build external visibility? There are two platforms that are no-brainer today. No-brainer. Number one, it's LinkedIn. It is, at the very least, if you're not creating content on LinkedIn, which you should be at least every now and then writing some post, but even if you're not doing that, the LinkedIn page has to represent the modern leader that you are. Someone goes on your LinkedIn page and it looks like, it's a bio from the 80s and a photo from the 90s and, all of that. That is not a good look. So what's an on-brand look for you? That's number one. So LinkedIn. Number two, being a guest on podcasts. Huge. It's because, again, it's all about right now, being found, right? Foundability. Well, when someone Googles your name, what comes up? When you're a guest on a podcast, likely the podcast is going to go on Spotify, it's going to go on Apple, it's going to go on YouTube, it's going to go on the host's website. That's all of those platforms signaling to the World Wide Web and AI that you must have something of value to say, because there are all these signals about you in relation to the topic that you want to be connected with. So LinkedIn, being a guest on podcasts. There are a lot of other things to be doing, but those two platforms right now are very powerful for leaders.
Everybody go do it. Get yourself on, and no, don't just get yourself on LinkedIn and update your history and all that kind of stuff. Post content. And posting content, when you first start posting content, can be really hard. What are some of the ways that an executive, or even like a mid-level manager or a new manager, what do you advise they start posting about in the beginning?
That's a great question. And again, there's a lot of resistance that we get from clients there when we start with that part of the process, because again, it feels like you're exposing yourself. I'll give good news, bad news. Okay. So good news, number one, is you don't need to be posting nonstop. So we hear a lot of that advice that if you want to gain any kind of traction, you need to be posting every single day. For CEOs and executives, that is not true. If you're looking to become a lifestyle influencer, yes, you should be posting 5 times a day. Gary Vaynerchuk, that's, a different category. If you want to be top of mind for your network, once a week. But every week, and even that sounds, I say only once a week, and a lot of people go like, oh, every week, Marina. So once a week, yes, once a week, but same day, same time. That consistency goes a long way. Now the question is, what kind of content? So first of all, doing that personal brand strategy up front helps define what your content pillars should be. What are those topics that you should be covering, should not be covering? Now, more good, bad news. Good news is you will more heavily lean into expertise and professional style content on LinkedIn. Bad news for the types of clients that we work with is there needs to be some humanizing content too. We have people who say, no, I just want to share thought leadership articles. I just want to share industry news. That is not building a personal brand. We don't connect on a human to human level just on the basis of that. There needs to be stories. There needs to be something personal that you're sharing where I will keep stumbling upon your post and I'm going to say, I'm not even going to say, but I'm going to feel Jason is my people. You need to create that feeling among people who come across your content. Now, the good news again is we're not looking to be Instagram influencers. It doesn't need to be very personal stuff of what you had for breakfast and what, lipstick I purchased today and where I'm vacationing. Not at all. It just has to be some storytelling where people feel affinity towards us or they really dislike us, which is okay too. That means that's not our people. So some has to be there. And then of course, there are always different hacks and tricks on LinkedIn on what works, what doesn't work. Links inside of posts doesn't work. Photos where your face is visible when someone's scrolling, and so they can be like, oh, that's Jason, and then stop and read the post. That works. Video, love-hate relationship on LinkedIn sometimes works well, sometimes doesn't, but some variety of content is good. And then I'll say one final point, Jason, which is the most important: quality control. So for you, for example, you go and you're about to click post on LinkedIn, look at that post and ask yourself, could you copy and paste it onto your business LinkedIn page? If the answer is yes, it's wrong. If the answer is no, that does feel a little bit more like this is my take, my personality, this is me, then that is a winning post.
One of the things I've seen some executives do really well is the things they post, no matter how often they post, are, hey, I learned something today, or I learned something this week. And I think based on what you said earlier, I think that's a great way, not just to build our personal brand, not just to build our thought leadership, but depending on where you are in the food chain of an organization, you may not if you're really high up in a big organization, you may not get that many opportunities to share what you've learned with everyone in your organization. But by posting on LinkedIn, that's something you can do, right?
I love that. And I also love because that is a post that fits what the energy and the vibe of a personal brand post should be, because that's I learned. Where again, people will shift it, and it's a nuanced shift, but it makes all of a difference as we say, we learned. We attended a conference, we learned. Okay, but then that goes on your business page. Say I, because also that shows that you're in a learner's mindset. And yes, you might be the CEO of the organization, you're still learning. You might be, as you said, in a lower level of an organization, you're not a thought leader yet, shows your learner's journey. So you're absolutely right, that type of a post works really well. As long as we keep with the I and not with the we, that works really well.
Which is so funny, because coming up in the Air Force, we were always taught that leadership is not an I business, leadership is a we business. And now in the 2020s, it's different.
It's different. And it's so, again, so hard that we've transitioned to a highly individualistic culture, right? Like if we look at our kids and if we look at how they live their lives, it's fascinating. It's highly individualistic. Now we have to still teach them, right, the value of teamwork and team sports. And it's not just about you and everyone gets a trophy and everyone's the most important cookie out there. But that shift has happened. It is a more individualistic culture in society. Again, there is a big difference, even in content, when you make it about yourself and you say I. And again, that's another nuance. And because we work with our clients on their content, we're able to catch it. You can be saying I versus we and still sound like a leader that can inspire and not, an individualistic, a-hole. But at the same time, you can say I and write through that angle and sound very preachy. And that's one thing you also want to avoid. And that's another mistake that a lot of thought leaders make, because you have a lot of stuff that you know. So you're like, now let me impart my wisdom on all of you. And here I am, and I'm telling you, that doesn't land super well either in short form content, because right now we're talking specifically about LinkedIn. This can work in an article, podcast interview, longer form on LinkedIn. You also want to always read and say, does this sound like I'm a preachy know-it-all? If that is the case, then that is not an ideal post either.
Fantastic. How does this fit in with an entrepreneur or startup founder? What should they be doing the same as an executive, and what should they be doing differently?
Well, so the same as everything that I discussed. The process is the same in that regard. What entrepreneurs and founders can do differently is we have a lot more freedom. When you're a hired executive, you still work under the umbrella of the corporation who is scrutinizing what you're writing. And because we work with CEOs and we work with executives, we know that a lot of their content needs to be approved. There are some things that they can't talk about. They need to be a lot more cautious. So when you're a founder and you're just starting out, you have a lot more freedom to not worry about those things. You can be a lot more freely yourself than somebody who is, working under the umbrella of an organization. Other than that, the process is completely the same. You figure out what your brand is all about, what are your goals, how you want to be perceived, all of those details. And then it's a very similar process for visibility. Look, some corporations, Jason, even have a lot of rules against certain platforms for visibility for their executives, right? There are certain limitations. You can be on podcasts, but you can't talk about the company, or your face can't be shown, so you can't do video. There are a lot more limitations. And of course, it's important to A, be conscious of it, and B, work with a firm that can then safeguard all those things for you so that you don't feel that you're making a mistake.
Yeah, and it also makes me wonder, how do we apply this if we're in the public sector, government, nonprofit, that kind of thing? Because there are certainly rules around that. And sometimes those rules make it really difficult to tell for a public sector executive or manager to tell the side of the story the public really needs to hear. What's your advice there for someone who is, because they probably won't be in the public sector forever?
Well, and that's shifting, right? Because if we're thinking specifically, for example, at politicians these days, how it has changed, right? Now it's all the elections are won and lost on the basis of personal brand building. I think that's absolutely remarkable and incredible to see that. And they're paying a lot of attention to, their perception through that angle and the story that they're building. But of course, there are limitations. I think in general, because people think that when you're building a personal brand, you just kind of go out there and talk about anything and everything. And then they say, well, but if I'm a corporate executive, then I have to be more careful. If I'm in, the public eye because I'm in the public sector, I have to be more careful. The thing is, I think for all of us, just going out there and just saying anything and everything that comes to mind is not a winning strategy. Because again, we're not building a clear personal brand. So that's why I go back to the fact that we all need to start with strategy. Now, what we can't do, Jason, and this is where, Brand of a Leader, my agency, we're 4.5 years old. We've worked with clients in 12 different countries. We've, over the years, built very many brand identities for people across the globe. We've had 2 highly dissatisfied clients. It breaks my heart that they were dissatisfied, but it makes for really interesting storytelling. So one of our clients, and of course I'm giving no identifying information, but one of our clients, he was not in the public sector, but positioning himself to work with a lot of governmental organizations. And so he needed to build a brand that was very buttoned up and very, presentable, that PR version. So the governmental organizations would say, this is a solid, serious, type of guy. But as we worked on his brand identity and got to know him, the guy is the biggest, punk rock personality. He goes off. He will send you an email. It's pages of run-on sentences, and he's swearing, and he's this. And so we took all of that, but we can't create this buttoned up version that he wants the governmental organizations to see. It's just not authentic. Great, amazing guy, successful, but he's one of these, personalities, like Richard Branson, but then some, right? So we couldn't do it. And so we told him that, yes, that's what you want. We can't do it. We can only package it rooted in authenticity. He got very upset with us. And he said, this is not what I hired you for. I hired you for that image. That no longer exists for politicians, for any of us. There's too much data, too many data points we get of each other where the authenticity will come out. So whatever your role, nonprofit, any role, you can create that buttoned up persona, but people will meet you somewhere after an event or in a restaurant or somewhere. They'll post it on social media. We'll see the real you. So that persona thing that is different for different sectors, that for better or worse, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. If you're out there in the world doing stuff, chances are it's showing up on social media like a Coldplay concert. So,
right? And it can be. And so you can create the persona, but then we get to know the authentic. Yeah. And as long as the authentic fits the persona that you've been showcasing, people are a lot more forgiving. So if people know you as this, Playboy CEO, and that's your persona, then that will not hit as heavily as if, you've created this version of yourself as this, perfect, wholesome, completely different type of an avatar in people's minds. So the more authentic we are, the more it also helps us during that type of a crash.
Yeah, everybody loves Richard Branson, right? So
listen, Elon Musk, right? Yeah. Donald Trump, right? When you're authentically yourself, you recover from all kinds of things because then it is on brand. Mind you, you get a lot of people in the process who loathe you, who don't like you, who despise you. But that is the power of a strong personal brand, because on the flip side of that are people who are absolutely in love with your authenticity. And that's, the risk, but also the reward.
I love that. I think it's a really valuable lesson for all of us. But I want to take a break from these questions. I want to play a game. Are you up for a game?
What's the game?
The name of this game is Rapid Response. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I want you to respond with the first thing that comes to your mind. Now, that doesn't mean you have to give a one-word answer. Elaborate as much or as little as you'd like. But we want to get to know you a little bit more than some of the other questions might lead us to.
Deal. Let's do it.
All right, you ready to start?
I'm ready.
All right. Marina Byezhanova, rapid response round. Your time begins now. Podcast recommendation.
Diary of CEO.
That's a good one. We hear that one a lot. A practice you'd like to see more people embrace.
Journaling twice a day. I journal in the morning, I journal at night, every single day, and it's been a game changer to me.
Why twice? And what's different about the morning journaling than the evening journaling?
Completely different prompts. In the morning, I set myself up for the day, what I want my energy for the day to be, what I'm, some of it is similar, gratitude, things like that, but it's looking forward. At night, I look backward. How was the day? How did it go? What are some of the things that I stayed on track and did it? All emotionally. It's not a to-do list type of thing. And then what energy do I want to fall asleep in and then wake up in?
Well, if anyone's out there thinking about their personal brand and the kinds of things they'd like to share, that's probably a good place to start. Someone we should all be paying attention to.
Someone we should all, me! No, I've been really enjoying the content from Cody Sanchez. She's the self-proclaimed contrarian thinker. That is her brand moniker, and I've been enjoying her so far quite a bit.
Yeah, I just got turned on to her recently and have been paying a lot of attention to what she's doing as well. What is either your get pumped up song or your walk-on music?
I recently answered it at a private event, and then they played it, and now I have to say it publicly. I'm sexy and I know it. I'm of the belief that if you look good, you feel good, you feel good, you look good. And so that would be mine right now, but they change all the time.
That is a great one, and I don't think it gets enough credit. I think, again, if you're thinking about your personal brand and putting yourself out there and you're looking to get pumped up, that's probably a good thing to get started with.
And it's interesting because when you do have a walk-up song, it's something that you can give to event organizers depending on the type of an event, right? So the corporate event, I'm sexy and I know it, would not quite fly, but I speak also at a lot of entrepreneurial events, and that's a perfect walk-up song because it makes everyone laugh.
Yeah, it's a great one. Mine often is the opening of Poison's Nothing But a Good Time, but just the opening. Like the guitar at the front, and everyone knows that, but we don't need to get into the rest of the song, right?
Right. Mine starts off strong. Right. With mine, you're in it right away. You're not waiting.
Starts off very strong. Besides Right Said Fred, the biggest influence in your life?
My dad. My dad influenced me a lot. I lost him 3.5 years ago, very unexpectedly. He was an incredible influence on my life as a father, as a mentor, as an entrepreneur, and most importantly, as a human being.
That's outstanding. Not that you lost your dad. We're very sorry about that, but it was great that he was such an inspiration to you.
Hugely.
A book everyone should read.
A book everyone should read. Ooh, I'm an avid reader, but what's a book that everyone should read? I think I would say Vivid Vision by Cam Harold. I am very big on vision, and what I liked about that book is I like the spiritual side of things, and I can be fairly woo-woo, but that book is rooted in practicality, which also I enjoyed. And I think that the importance of having clarity of vision, personal and professional, can be under talked about, and that book was quite impactful for me. So Vivid Vision, Cam Harold.
That's a great one. Best autumn recreational activity in Montreal. You're in Montreal, right?
I am in Montreal, yes. Autumn is fall?
Yes.
Well, definitely the best one is at some point in October, all the leaves start changing color. And then when they go and they're red and orange and yellow in every shade, just driving outside the city and just seeing that beauty and take it in is really powerful. In Canada, we don't all love our winters, but that transitional period warms us up to it through its beauty, I would say.
Yeah, I grew up in New England, so I got to see leaves changing colors all of my childhood, and it is something I miss, but not enough to move back to New England. So
you can just come visit.
Yeah.
It only lasts a couple of weeks, and then it's done anyways.
You really only need a couple of weekends, and you're good. Your dream vacation spot?
So I do travel quite a bit, which I'm very grateful for. I grew up in the Soviet Union, and the first few years of my life, well, until I was 9, I grew up behind the Iron Curtain. I was convinced I would never travel anywhere, and now I get to travel all over the world, which I'm extremely grateful for. What's on my list of places I absolutely want to go that I haven't gone to yet is India. Back in the Soviet Union and then Ukraine, we grew up with Bollywood. So India, top of list, and Japan. Those are the 2 places I really want to go.
Sounds really good. What is a trend you're excited about?
You know what? And this is probably really weird for an owner of a branding agency. I follow no trends. I don't know about most trends, and I don't follow most trends. I'm really excited about AI and about all of the technological advances. It's for sure not a trend. It's the new way. I just went to LA and I drove in the Waymo. It blew my mind. I became obsessed with it. And so what I'm looking forward to is those coming to Montreal. So I can no longer drive a car and have a Waymo bring me everywhere. But again, that's not a trend, that's a future. I would imagine that my kid, who's now 9, might never even get a driver's license because, the world is changing, and that I do love.
All right, last one. Favorite sports team or player?
Oh my God, shoot. I don't follow any teams, but I definitely, when I do watch something, it is soccer. And it brings me back to my days of watching soccer with my dad. And the player we were most excited about being from Ukraine was Shevchenko. And so my vote will go, he no longer plays, he still coaches, but my vote will go to him because of the warm and fuzzy feelings that his name evokes in me.
Well, that's great. We were not real big into soccer in the United States until very recently. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's really interesting to watch. Really great to see that we're embracing soccer a little bit more here. So, and World Cup is coming up next year. So,
yeah, it's really fun. It's picking up. And it really took a moment as an immigrant to understand football is not football. It's soccer, because back at home we called it football. So it's it's been interesting too.
yeah, so what was football to you growing up is not football where you are in Canada, and that's not football where we are in the States. So,
Right. The cultural differences despite globalization.
all right. Well, thank you for playing our game. It's nice to get to know you a little bit in a way that the other questions might not let us know.
That was really fun.
Good. I'm glad. So I think we can see why it's important for executives, entrepreneurs, startup founders to have a strong personal brand. What should young emerging leaders be thinking about now when it comes to building their personal brand to set themselves up for success to meet their long-term career goals?
HR is changing in ways that I think we are not even really fully understanding or anticipating. With the rise of, AI and more companies looking at how they can hire, there's the human team and then there's the AI team, and it's already here and it's starting. I think the importance, the antiquated way of hiring, the antiquated way of here's my resume and here's my skill set, I think it's all going away, because we're not going to be looking at resume like skill set as much anymore down the line. But we're still going to be looking for humans, that's for sure. We're going to be looking for humans who show passion, creativity, critical thinking, who have, the ability to communicate very strongly. I'm going to be looking for those things. There's things that are going to be very difficult to communicate on the resume, I believe, unless that completely transforms and we no longer look at resumes and there's a different way. So I believe that the easier way for emerging leaders to stand out right now is by first understanding themselves, understanding what their brand as a leader really is, and then building that visibility and presence so that for career management, as we'll likely hire less people, as we'll likely need less leaders and less managers, they are the one that comes to mind because they're associated with those soft skills that will continue being in demand. So I think that shift is fascinating. I think what's interesting is there's so many layers there for younger leaders. It's easier for them to be in the spotlight, but depending, of course, on their age, but in a more casual way. To be a leader today, you still need to have a little bit more of a polished online presence and persona. So they need to learn how to do that. Older leaders need to learn how to loosen up a little bit. Younger leaders need to learn how to be just a bit more polished so that it looks a bit more professional. How to navigate not only the ability, but the comfort with sharing anything and everything in a way that is conducive to a professional career as well. There's a lot of learning for them there. But I think, packaging yourself with a little bit more professionalism as juxtaposition to older leaders needing to ease up a little bit, I think that will be the biggest challenge and change.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, so many of these young folks are really comfortable putting their lives online. They're really comfortable being in the spotlight, much more so than we ever were. And you talked about putting a bit more of that polish, that professionalism on what they're putting out there. What are some things that maybe they should stop doing, or habits they should try to break specifically that can help them do that, to have a little more professional image, more polished image than maybe their feed would lead us to believe right now?
I think it's the same as I tell my 15-year-old daughter, do not put anything out there, including in the private text message or Snapchat or whatnot. She doesn't text as much, Snapchat, that you would not be comfortable with the whole world seeing. your teachers, should have started working, your employer, and everyone else. And I think that's the biggest lesson. They have a hard time with that and understanding the impact and permanency of that, right? So it goes with, different age groups. If we're looking at today, so professionals that are employed today, they are employed by older millennials and Gen Xers as, higher level leaders. Higher level leaders Google you and they judge you. And I've seen it happen many times. I remember this one story, it was fascinating. There was a fellow leader looking to hire someone. They were at the offer stage, and then they saw some old video of the guy they were going to hire from 10 years ago, some really inappropriate rapping video. They were acting inappropriate. They were saying inappropriate things, and there was that video. It was from 10 years prior. At this point, the guy's like a family man. He's very calm, chill, like has children. That was old news. He didn't even know it was still out there. However, the company looking to hire him said, we're not going to hire him. That's inappropriate. And so he had to work really hard on trying to get that video down and explain to them, et cetera, et cetera. They gave him a chance to explain himself. It was there to explain. It was young and silly. Not every organization is going to do that. So I think as the younger generation grows up, my son who's 9, by the time he hits the workforce, his managers are going to be, from the Gen Z generation, and maybe they will be a lot less forgiving, and they won't care as much that you put some silly stuff out there years ago. But still, in the current landscape, we care. And so it goes back to the advice that I give my daughter. Don't put anything out there that you don't want the whole entire world to be able to see forever. The younger they are, the harder to understand the concept of forever. But if for those leaders who are in the workforce already, I think it's more digestible.
Yeah, the advice that we were given in officer training when I was first coming into the Air Force was, if you don't want to see it about yourself on the front page of the New York Times, you probably shouldn't say it or do it. And I think your advice is much more timely advice for young people today. So besides the personal branding stuff, what can we be doing as leaders and mentors to help emerging leaders come along as leaders and become the leaders we're going to have in the future?
First of all, I have to say that I have such mad respect for everyone who served in the military, anywhere in the world. Mad respect. I think that and I love reading books written by former members of the military, because I think those traditional, deeply rooted core values is what needs to be taught to the younger generations. I think that is crucial. I think that is, the answer to a lot of our societal gaps right now. So I think number one, those core values, the depth of those is really important. Beyond that, and if we're talking more, in light of what we're discussing right now, as I said, there is that gap of the older generation says, am I special enough? So should I be putting myself out there? Am I special enough? The younger generation feels I'm the most special snowflake that's ever existed. Now, I really support that the feeling of one's uniqueness and specialness. I support it. However, at the same time, it is important for us to teach our younger leaders that just by default of being unique, we're born unique, that's how, God created us and we're all unique. It doesn't mean that we're the center of the universe. And as leaders, we really have to be able to put aside our needs for a moment, our emotions very much so. And we see a lot of younger leaders struggling with that. And we need to be able to serve the bigger good, the bigger goal. I think, again, going back to, some of what you shared and the lessons from the military and that motivation to share a bigger mission, I think we need to be teaching that to our younger leaders too. What is the bigger mission that they're serving when they're joining an organization? What is their bigger mission? Just instant gratification. Today, I want to be happy and I want to live a good life. Still important. We all want to be happy and living a good life. But what is your bigger mission? When you have a mission, when you have a vision, when you live rooted in respectable values, that is when you start building a strong personal brand and other people respect you. You reflect to the external world at scale when building a personal brand who you are internally. So constantly investing in that internal work is crucial. And I think that is what we must be teaching our younger generations as well.
I really like that. What else do you look for when you're looking to hire a leader to come in on your team or promote someone to be a leader on your team?
Light in the eyes. there is more and more, not a lot we can do on the skill set that technology is not replacing, or we're not going to be able to replace. But what technology cannot replace is all of the human qualities that we have. The light in the eye, the ability to manage and regulate emotions. AI is very good at that. It doesn't have any, but still have empathy and compassion. To have, critical thinking, to have discernment, to have creativity. Those are key skills, not only for leaders. Those are key skills now across the board, and they're going to continue being key skills across the board. But that light in the eyes, Jason, to me, that passion, when someone's actually genuinely interested in what they're doing, they're genuinely interested and want to be doing what they're doing, to me, that's priceless and precious. One of the core values of Brand of a Leader is we are in awe. And that feeling of being in awe, that's not fake, because GPT seems to be in awe of all of us all the time, right? Like, good job, good question, Jason. I totally agree, Marina. You go for those good feels, but they're fake. Those good feels that are real in someone's eyes, those are the types of people I want on the team and I want in leadership roles.
It's so funny. I had to work really hard to train some of my GPTs to stop trying to please me and to do that when it couldn't do something I was asking it to do. I think on one of them we're finally there. So,
but you know what? My concern is that GPT has done a lot of great things for us and continues to. Right? Sometimes I find myself already being like, how did I live without it? It's so helpful, but it kills a lot of things for us. So one, it killed some of the emojis, right? Because then for content, all of a sudden people couldn't use them. The rocket ship. It killed the M dash. My whole writing team and editors, they're heartbroken, can't use the M dash anymore because that's a giveaway, right? So it kills things. I think it also killed that exciting communication, because that is how we communicate at Brand of a Leader. That is our communication. That is a core value. We're in awe. So if Jason's our client, we're going to be like, Jason, you're so inspiring. Jason, you're so amazing. Oh my God, Jason, your interview was so great. And so we had a client who said, I want to vomit from this communication. Don't talk to me like that. But I suspect it's because we've all overdosed on the fakeness of GPT that now we're suspicious that if someone's communicating like that with us, it must be either fake or maybe they copy and paste it from their tool.
Yeah, well, I'm still using the rocket ship emoji, so you see me use it.
Standing firm.
It's for real. It's because I really do mean something going up like a rocket ship. I'm very careful about that kind of stuff when I do work with AI to generate copy, to make sure that this is something I would say and this is an emoji I would really use.
It's really important because, when you're building your personal brand, it's all about trust and authenticity. And you lose that trust in 3 seconds when people see that it's some generic content and then somebody else said something very similar, but just on a different topic. People notice that. Even worse, when people use AI to reply to comments, that really loses all authenticity, right? Like you write an AI generated post, I use AI to comment on it, you use AI to respond to my comment, and how tragic that is. So I think that's another thing that people misuse when it comes to creating content on LinkedIn, and something that's becoming a bit tragic and a bit of a travesty.
Good advice. As a young engineer, I learned never pull your plots off of the printer and show them to your boss without looking at them first, because your boss is going to say, what does this graph mean? And you go, I don't know, just printed it off the printer, right? So good advice. So what other kinds of technology are you applying at Brand of a Leader to help your clients?
So really, we use AI tools for productivity. So a lot of focus on that. And we're constantly testing out new tools. Played around with HeyGen quite a bit. It's still too creepy when you use it as, your human avatar. And I think also loses that authenticity. But we're always trying different tools. We're always looking at automation. As far as things that we do for clients, they're predominantly rooted in human created everything. So we don't create, we use Canva AI to support us in graphic creation, but we don't use it just as is out of the box for that. We don't create anything for clients, again, that can look generic or can look like it's for someone else. But as far as trying tools and playing around with tools, that's an ongoing for us. And now our big focus in seeing who is going to be our first AI employee, aside from Claude AI, that's going to be an actual AI agent. We're very excited about that. Because really what, a lot of people fear AI and field technology, but really what it will allow us to do is offload all of the tasks we don't like. So we can spend more time doing things that we love, and we're all for that.
That's what I always tell people. Just, if you're curious to start playing with AI, let the robots do things robots are good at, let humans do things humans are good at, and let's work side by side.
But someone challenged me on that recently, because that's my position as well. We share that. Someone challenged me and said, but Marina, there's a big percentage of people, employees, who do things like robots. Very transactional, in and out, very repetitive, and what's going to happen to them. And I think on a societal level, it's so important to be having those conversations. And those are conversations I constantly have with my kids. When they get very hung up on a certain subject, I keep explaining to them, not the subject. You need to love learning. You need to know how to learn. You need to be able to adapt to things. You need to be able to be resilient. When I go meet with their teachers and the teacher will say, I don't know, your kid does not have a good grade in ABC, I just tell them, please, no matter what, let's not kill their love for learning and the subject in general. I don't care about the grade. I just don't care about that. It doesn't matter. But I want them to walk away and be like, I love, challenging myself in math. I love languages, not like, French this, math that. So I think that mentality, when we bring it to the workplace and when we're able to communicate it as leaders to our team members, the importance of learning, the importance of resilience, the importance of reinvention, which is very hard for a lot of people who struggle with change. That is the biggest also benefit that we can bring to our team members as their leaders.
Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson for whether you are an employee or whether you are someone who is leading employees, leading people, to have those conversations and say, you're really good at doing this right now. I need you to become really good at doing this, though.
Very much so. And that change, it's so difficult, right? It's change in general is difficult for most people. We can get excited as entrepreneurs, but most people don't welcome it. And that idea that they'll have to be reinventing themselves and what they do today might be drastically different from what they're doing 3 years from now is definitely daunting. And I do think that, again, as excited as we get about it as entrepreneurs, I keep reminding myself, because I forget, to also have empathy and understand that transition is not as seamless for many others.
Absolutely. So you have gotten to spend a lot of time with a lot of very successful CEOs through your work. What are some of the other lessons you've learned from them about leadership?
I've learned that everything starts internally. I've learned that the best leaders, yes, they're lifelong learners. Yes, they're always seeking new knowledge and skill set as far as, whatever external, but that personal growth is at the core of every inspiring and successful CEO and leader that I know. It takes so much work. All of those practices, all of the, life coaches and energy coaches and therapists and all of that internal gruesome and grueling work is what allows us to be a better leader and manage our emotions and bring our better selves to the workplace and our employees. So I would say that is the core one. And I've seen it across the board. I've also learned that one of the most important things that we can have, not only as leaders, but as human beings, is confidence. I think a lot of evil, Ryan Holiday says ego is the enemy. I think lack of confidence is equally as much of an enemy, because that's when we start overcompensating, bringing others down. And again, that's rooted in self-work. If we're constantly working on ourselves internally, not external validation, because CEOs, successful people get so much external validation, guess what? It does not fill the black hole if you're not filling it in other ways. And I've seen that the most, again, inspiring and successful people are always working on themselves, their confidence, and all of the inner that then affects all of the external.
Couldn't agree more. What's coming up for you and Brand of a Leader in the next few months?
Lots of things. So we're in high growth. We've only been around, as I told you, Jason, for 4.5 years, but we've become recognized in the industry. And ChatGPT, as I told you, tells people to reach out to us. So that's a good thing. We're on a good path. We've started doing we've never had a sales department. And we've never done outbound anything. So we're in nobody's DMs who did not invite us there. We don't have, a cold newsletter. There's none of that happening. Everything is inbound. We're very proud of that. And so we're now investing in other ways of continuing to build that brand awareness. We've begun to sponsor events where, again, we don't gather people's emails and put them on lists. Someone said, please remove me from your list. And I sent an email and I said, you remove it because we don't have a list. Is that a bad thing for an organization, for a marketing firm to not have a list? I don't have a list. That's just been a strategy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with newsletters. I read many of them. That's been a strategy. So we've begun to sponsoring events. We've begun to put ourselves out there more and more. That's number one. Number two, we're very closely looking at the possibility of adding a new service to our overall scope, which would be helping our clients write books. A lot of our clients they're at that stage where now they have more to say and they want that legacy piece. We're looking at whether we would launch a division or acquire a publishing house and grow through that side. That's a big focus for us. And also big focus of what we're studying right now is the possibility of creating more presence in the Indian market. As I mentioned to you, we work with leaders in 12 different countries, but we're getting a lot of interest from India. We have some high profiles from profile clients from India that we've brought on board. And as I mentioned to you, how interesting, maybe there's a connection, some kind of a karmic connection there. I told you that India is at the top of the list of the countries I want to visit. And so we're really looking at what would be our expansion strategy into that market as well. And then lastly, AI, big part of what we're looking at as well.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of great things going on right now and coming up in the future. For everyone watching or listening right now, what's something we can start doing today to get our personal brand on the right track?
The first thing I would say, do a digital audit of yourself. So first think of, how do I want to be perceived? How do I want my brand to be perceived? So an exercise for you, Jason, if you haven't done it yet after a call, how do you want people to perceive you? How do you want them to describe you if they come across your brand in any way, on your podcast, Google, LinkedIn, anywhere? So you write that down. And then you go and do a digital audit of yourself. Go Google your name, go look yourself up on social media, and then ask yourself, what shows up? Does that help build that perception? Is there a gap? You know, it's funny, I give this exercise when I speak at Deloitte a couple of times, 3 times every year, not to their internal team, but to their clients who are corporate executives from across the country. And I give them this exercise, and I see a whole bunch of them start smiling. Relieved smiles come on their faces. And I know what they're thinking. And I look at them and I say, you're smiling because you go, nothing comes up when you Google me. Nothing comes up. I'm not there. I'm nowhere. And you're happy right now. I said, but my question to you is, do you want to be perceived as invisible? Because if you do, well, I didn't convince you today, but then you're on brand. But if you don't want to be invisible and you are, is that a good thing? So I would say that's the first thing. How do you want to be perceived? Digital audit. What does the World Wide Web or the social media pages, how do they position you? What story would they tell about you?
Well, this has just been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for joining us today, Marina. Where can everyone find you so they can also thank you for joining us today?
LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. I love exchanging with people. So you punch in my difficult to spell last name with my easy to spell first name, Marina, into LinkedIn. I'm the only one there with this name. We can connect and chat. And also, of course, check out our website, www.brandofaleader.com.
And we will put all those links in the episode description for you so you don't have to try to go find them. I want to thank all of you for watching and listening today. If you found this conversation valuable, go ahead and share it with someone who can use it. Leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're on a podcast platform where you can leave a review, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps us grow the audience and get more of these amazing conversations like this one with Marina out today. Go out there, do great things today. Onward and upward.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason.